He's here. The president-elect arrives in Washington a day before he takes control of the free world. Avalanche in central Italy. At least 3 people are dead, 30 missing.
They're calling this really a tragedy within the tragedy.
Mary Shovlin with our nightly report from Rome. Caught on camera, a high-rise building in Iran collapses. We'll take you there. And inaugural prayers. I interview one of 6 faith leaders taking part in tomorrow's ceremony. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, January 19th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Donald and Melania Trump are here in Washington, D.C. on the eve of this inauguration. The president-elect is less than 24 hours away from taking the oath of office. We have team coverage tonight. Jason Calvi will join us from Capitol Hill in just a moment. But first, Wyatt Goolsby reports from the White House. Wyatt.
Lauren, the president-elect is kicking off his inauguration festivities just a few blocks from where I'm standing. He's attending a concert at the Lincoln Memorial before going to a reception and dinner at Union Station.
The president-elect and the soon-to-be First Lady arrived just after noon at Joint Base Andrews. From there, he was whisked to a leadership luncheon in Washington, D.C.
We've had such great support in this room.
And a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. Leaving early this morning from Trump Tower, the president-elect seemed in good spirits, tweeting, "Getting ready to leave for Washington, D.C. The journey begins, and I will be working and fighting very hard to make it a great journey for the American people. I have no doubt that we will, together, make America great again."
It's going to be a very humbling and moving day for the president-elect, his family, and for mine. But let me tell you, we are all ready to go to work.
Vice President-elect Mike Pence assuring the press that the new Trump administration will be ready on day one. Today he announced that all 21 cabinet nominees have been named. Now they just need to be confirmed by the Senate. Pence also thanked President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden.
The cooperation that the outgoing administration has extended in this transition effort would make every American proud. And I know the president-elect has expressed his appreciation.
The inauguration ceremony will take place at noon, but the preparations have been months in the making. Thousands of officers are taking on the massive security challenge, both for the ceremony itself and for the parade to follow.
That increase in security is visible everywhere you go here in Washington, including just across the street from me at the Blair House. That's the presidential guest house. That's where Donald Trump will spend the night before moving to the White House. Lauren?
Wyatt, boy, is it nonstop for Donald Trump and his family. And my understanding is that he will begin the day tomorrow with prayer.
Yes, both Donald Trump and Mike Pence will continue in a tradition by praying privately at St. John's Episcopal Church near the White House before meeting with their predecessors and then going together to the inauguration.
Cardinal Dolan is also one of 6 people who will be speaking tomorrow, right?
Yes, Lauren, this is actually of any presidential candidate before. They've picked the largest list of religious and clergy members to pray or speak at a presidential inauguration. You mentioned Cardinal Dolan, but there's a diverse list here, including famous Rabbi Marvin Heyer, as well as evangelical leader Samuel Rodriguez.
And he will join us later in the show. Thank you, Wyatt. We expect 2 congressional votes immediately after tomorrow's inauguration, the beginning of a new legislative agenda under President Donald Trump. Our team coverage continues with Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. Jason.
Lauren, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says they'll vote on defense and Homeland Security nominees tomorrow. Both are expected to be easily confirmed. Now, compare that to 2009, when the Senate confirmed 7 of President Obama's picks on his inauguration day. Trump spokesman Sean Spicer says it's disappointing that the Senate won't be voting on other cabinet picks tomorrow.
Republicans have one priority tomorrow, confirming Trump's cabinet. Democrats are putting on the brakes.
Republicans were simply trying to jam through these nominees out of sight of the American people.
Next on the list, repealing Obamacare.
As you kind of repeal it, you replace it, and some of the elements of the replacement would still contain certain provisions of the old law.
Ohio Governor John Kasich is asking his fellow Republicans to make sure to pass a replacement with a repeal.
We don't want to lose coverage for 700,000 people in our state, a quarter of whom have chronic conditions, a third of whom have problems with mental illness and drug addiction. But we think there's a dramatic way to improve the quality of care while reducing the costs.
And the crucial cornerstone of Trump's campaign.
I think getting the economy moving is one of the key things that can happen now. And that would be through tax reform, regulatory relief, doing more in terms of ensuring we have a level playing field on trade, all of which I think are now possible with a new administration, a new Congress, and we're turning a new page.
And it's a new chapter for Catholics, gearing up to watch history in the making.
It's once in a lifetime.
It's kind of one of those pinch me moments.
Louis Murray is a member of the Trump Catholic Advisory Group. He says we're one day away from a major milestone for pro-lifers.
We already know that his first Supreme Court pick is going to be someone that protects the life, liberty, and happiness, pursuit of happiness of all Americans, born or unborn. So that's a great start.
Also today, the Republican National Committee unanimously elected Ronna Romney McDaniel to be the party's chair. She replaces Reince Priebus, who's now Trump's chief of staff. And Warren McDaniel was handpicked by Trump and is the niece of a former presidential candidate, Mitt Romney.
How significant is it that he picked a woman to lead the party?
Well, one state Republican chair says it's part of an honest effort to improve the party's standing with women. McDaniel herself says Democrats have hailed themselves as the party of women, but she says that's a false view and she wants to change it.
That is some honest talk. Thank you so much. Jason Calvi reporting from Capitol Hill. Donald Trump has announced the final cabinet post nomination. Trump picked former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue to lead the Agriculture Department. Perdue is a farmer's son who built businesses in grain, trading, and trucking before becoming the first Republican governor of Georgia since Reconstruction. He would be the first Southerner in the post in more than 2 decades. Trump says Perdue will deliver big results for all Americans who earn their living off the land. Former Texas Governor Rick Perry, the pick to lead the Energy Department, says he regrets his statement about getting rid of that very agency.
My past statements made over 5 years ago about abolishing the Department of Energy do not reflect my current thinking. In fact, after being briefed on so many of the vital functions of the Department of Energy, I regret recommending its elimination.
Perry told a Senate committee that if confirmed, he will be a passionate advocate for the department's core missions. He also pledged to promote and develop American energy in all forms. Trump's Treasury Secretary nominee defends his record running a California bank. Steven Mnuchin says after he bought the bank, it stopped making risky loans like the ones that hurt many Americans during the housing crisis.
During the summer of 2008, I saw the devastation that was caused by the housing crisis when I watched people line up to get their life savings out of IndyMac Bank. It was the middle of the financial crisis, and despite the global panic, I saw a way to save the bank.
Mnuchin told senators his bank helped borrowers by extending more than 100,000 loan modifications so they could keep their homes. Trump's choice to lead the Environmental Protection Agency testified before a select group of senators Wednesday. Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt says the human impact on climate change needs more debate.
The ability to measure with precision the degree and extent of that impact and what to do about it are subject to continuing debate and dialogue, and well, it should be.
Pruitt sued the EPA repeatedly while serving as Oklahoma Attorney General. Loud protesters outside the room criticized Pruitt for his ties to the oil industry, and a handful of protesters inside were escorted out of the hearing. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. An avalanche in Italy buries a 4-star hotel, trapping at least 30 people inside, killing 3 others. Some guests, unable to get out, sent text messages begging for help. But heavy snow is making it difficult for emergency crews to reach them and to search for other survivors. One hotel guest says his wife and children are buried inside the building. The avalanche happened when he went outside to get something out of his car. Italy's premier is asking authorities to redouble their efforts to reach people isolated by new earthquakes and snowfall. Mary Shovlin joins us from Rome. Mary, what is the update on the rescue mission?
At this point, Lauren, we know that 3 bodies have been recovered as of this afternoon of the 30 that were missing. When rescuers arrived on the scene, they found 2 people alive, saying that everyone else was trapped inside. We know that 30 people were staying in this hotel, and unfortunately, all calls for life have gone unheeded. They're getting no response. So it doesn't look good, but at least 3 of the bodies have been found, and that count is liable to go up through the evening.
This is just horrible news. Do they think that avalanche was caused by yesterday's earthquakes? I know that you felt those tremors where you are in Rome.
We did feel them here, and there were 3 or 4 above 5.0 on the Richter scale. So couple that with record snowfall which they're getting in central Italy, in some places up to 10 feet of snow. And that was the situation in the area in Abruzzo where this hotel was. So they think that of course, the earth shaking, and it continues to do so, certainly may have led to this record snowfall shaking loose from the mountain and burying this hotel.
Now, you did not get snow in Rome. Is that right, or did you?
We haven't got any snow here, but the temperatures are lower than normal, let's say, but especially so in central Italy. And thank goodness for the rescue workers. The weather was very nice today in terms of the wind had died down. There was sunlight. They were able to see what they were doing, and they're hoping for more of the same tomorrow as they continue to try to dig out this hotel and get rescue vehicles to the scene.
It seems like Italy really can't catch a break. There's one natural disaster after another. Are people fearful? I think when it comes to earthquakes and avalanches, you wonder what's happening to the world and to the ground beneath you.
This is a people that have been tested to their limits, the Italians. They're calling this really a tragedy within the tragedy. So we already had the earthquakes. This is the 3rd round of devastating earthquakes in central Italy. And now an avalanche that's buried people that are trapped inside of a hotel. So again, a tragedy within a tragedy. Hope is wearing thin.
What is Pope Francis saying?
Well, we know some comments from the Secretary General of the Italian Bishops' Conference. He made some comments to Italian media today, and he said Pope Francis is informed about everything that's going on. He's calling bishops himself. He's encouraging the Italian Bishops' Conference to get as involved as they can at the parish level, from bishops and priests, to let the people know that the church is with them and near them, and he wants those people to feel the closeness of the church. This coming from Pope Francis himself.
Our prayers here in Washington are with all of the Italians who are suffering because of these horrific, horrific events. Mary Shovlin reporting in Rome for EWTN News Nightly. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Lauren.
In Iran, at least 30 firefighters are dead after a high-rise building caught fire and collapsed. The collapse of the iconic Plasco building in central Tehran was caught on camera. It's not clear how many people living in the building were killed or how the fire started. Rescue workers continue to dig through the rubble, looking for survivors. A thick plume of brown smoke rose over the site after the collapse. The Pentagon says U.S. Air Force B-2 bombers and drones struck ISIS camps in southern Libya overnight. It's not known how many militants may have been killed in the strikes in the former ISIS stronghold of Sirte. Sources say President Obama himself approved the mission several days ago. Coming up, as the nation prays for George and Barbara Bush, we'll give you an update on their condition. And a one-on-one interview with Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, who's taking center stage at tomorrow's inauguration. Former President George H.W. Bush and his wife Barbara remain hospitalized in Houston. The 41st president is in intensive care for pneumonia, and the former First Lady is being treated for bronchitis. The 92-year-old former commander-in-chief underwent a procedure to clear his airway. A spokesman says Barbara Bush had not been feeling well for a couple of weeks, and doctors want to see how she responds to treatment before allowing her to return home. President Obama reduces the sentences of 330 federal inmates convicted of drug crimes. He says he's trying to correct a systematic injustice. This brings the total number of commutations granted to 1,715, and that's more than any other president in U.S. history. And he leaves office with good news on the job front. The number of Americans seeking unemployment benefits dropped last week to the lowest level in more than 43 years. The unemployment rate sits at 4.7%. Donald Trump's inauguration could be interrupted by protesters. An estimated 28,000 officers and security members will fan out across Washington, D.C. for protection, also to keep people moving.
There's always that awareness that protesters may be at any of our sites. We've dealt with this throughout the campaign, and I think we were very successful with that.
Security crews will also be on the lookout for drones to make sure no one tries to fly one in restricted airspace. 6 religious leaders from different faiths will participate in the inauguration. One of them is Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. You're going to deliver an invocation and do a reading, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a very busy time for you.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about your church.
It's a wonderful multi-ethnic church, multi-generational in Sacramento, California, with campuses in Stockton and in Reno, and now we're opening up in Los Angeles. So
and you said it's the largest?
Well, our organization is, by the grace of God, the largest Christian Latino organization in America and in the world, for that matter. We have about 450,000 churches around the world that we strive to serve, and 40,118 churches here in America that are members of the organization.
And I remember, if I remember correctly, your views were not always in line with the Donald Trump campaign views. So now you're coming into the fold and you're participating in the inauguration.
I don't know if I'm coming into the fold. I think the president-elect is more coming into the fold of expressing more compassion towards the immigrant community. I was respectfully critical of the president-elect, so I always did it with great respect and due deference because I agreed with him on issues of life and religious liberty. So there were many issues that I would agree with Donald Trump on.
But it wasn't immigration.
It wasn't immigration. His rhetoric on immigration ran counter, in my opinion, to who we are as children of God created in God's image. Without a doubt. It built the proverbial wall, rhetorically, even before the physical wall.
Between the Hispanic community and Donald Trump.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
And so when the invitation came along, it came along right when he began a pivot as it pertains to tone. Not necessarily the content. He's building a wall, stopping illegal immigration, deporting those that are involved in nefarious activity. But the moment he began to speak with compassion about those terrific people, these terrific, amazing people.
Who are immigrants to the United States.
Immigrants without documentation.
Without a green card.
Right, without a green card, who overstayed their visas and so forth, but their kids were born here and that sort of thing. The moment he began to change a bit on tone, I went, wait, and then subsequently the invitation came in. And I spoke to my executive committee, which is my wife and my kids. And I said, I received an invitation from the president-elect, from his team, and they want me to participate in swearing-in ceremony. Never before has a Latino Christian ever participated.
That is
in American
remarkable.
history. So it's the first time.
So of course you said yes.
Well, after doing my due diligence first, really, and my wife and my kids, other than my faith in Christ, that's my life.
How do you hope that you will be able to guide the Trump administration or have an influence in the Trump administration?
I hope and pray that they, with the access they have granted, and truly without any sort of hyperbole, it's been surprising. I had a conversation with the transition team on the Dreamers, these kids that were granted DACA through executive fiat of the President Obama. And just, Mr. President-elect, please don't touch them. I mean, should the kids pay for the sins of their parents? 2 hours later, the President-elect, they issued a statement. They will not harm these kids. 2 hours later, I went, this is unprecedented. Wow. So they have been more than gracious. They have been more than gracious.
Your one voice.
No, but it's beyond me, of course. But they are more than gracious, and they are accommodating, and they're listening. And by the way, 30% of Latinos voted for Donald Trump.
There you
60s,
go.
So it's, Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Okay, thank you so much. Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, we will see you on Center Stage tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, the Holy Father's message to Lutheran pilgrims gathered at the Vatican for the Feast of St. Henrik. And we'll talk to a priest born in Lebanon, fighting for religious persecution. His advice for the Trump team. Pope Francis says it's impossible to be Christian without facing temptations.
Sento la lotta, la voglia di fare il bene.
At his daily homily at his residence, the Holy Father echoed St. Paul's words, saying the Christian life is a daily struggle. The Holy Father asked the Lord to give us the grace to discern what is going on in our hearts and choose the right path. Pope Francis tells a group of Lutheran visitors that Martin Luther's intention 500 years ago was to renew the Church, not divide her. The Lutheran delegation from Finland came to the Vatican to take part in the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity. A recent study shows 1 in 12 Christians across the globe is persecuted for their faith. As Donald Trump assumes the presidency, one U.S. priest hopes the new administration will increase the fight against the persecution of Christians.
May this Bible bless America tonight to be the world of truth, justice, kindness, mercy, bringing peace to all. Amen.
That was Father Andre Mahana at a Trump campaign rally, and he joins us now. Father Mahana is the U.S. President for the Apostolic Union of Clergy and the pastor of St. Rafka Maronite Catholic Church in Lakewood, Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lauren, for having me.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you are doing for the church. But first, I'd like to talk about your history. You were persecuted in Lebanon. You lived with your family in caves. Tell us what you saw.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me here today to EWTN. And I give this as a tribute to the legacy and the life of Mother Angelica, because she enabled us to speak from America so we can save multiple lives in the Middle East and across the globe, including in our nation. We lived without hope. And even though directly myself, I only experienced a little bit of the tale of the religious persecution due to the job of my father, but the only story I can tell you, when I was born, the day I was born, right before Christmas in early 70s, I had a machine gun pulled to my head and we were kicked out of my house with all my 5 brothers and my mom, and the uncle who saved us got cut up in pieces. And at certain points in our life, we had to live in caves, and I really lived in cave with multiple other children and families, escaping heavy, heavy bombing over our heads.
Well, it's a miracle that you're sitting here with me today, and I'm blown away by your story. And you have turned your life, and not to a life of woe is me, but to a life of I'm going to help other people. Tell me what you're doing to help others who have been persecuted.
Yes, the worst realization a child can come to is when you're sitting at night in a dark Phoenician tomb with 60 other individuals, and all you hear on an old radio system that tomorrow morning we're gonna come down and we're gonna cut you in pieces and we're gonna drink your blood. I made the wish at that point that I wanna make peace in the world. So I was telling my friend here who brought me to DC for this beautiful inauguration, I said, I cannot imagine I survived the cave and I made the dream come true to come to the US and to speak about this. So this is the first thing I'm gonna do about it. Talk about it, speak about it, let the whole world understand that suffering is not personal. Suffering is collective. When I suffer, you suffer too. The suffering of one individual on earth causes injury in our relationship with one another and with God. So what I'm doing here is try to create a culture of information, acceptance, let people be informed about the suffering of Christians all the way to the top by awareness and charity.
You were just appointed as special envoy to clerics in the U.S., and that is to help raise awareness to the status of Christians. Tell me specifically what you're asking Christians in the U.S. to do.
Well, first of all, we want the Christians in America to thank God for the gift of the United States in America. Maintain and hold on to the constitutional right of religious freedom. Go to church on Sunday. Repent. Don't be the local people who say, I was baptized. My mom and dad used to go to the church, because they do not know what it means to be deprived of a church and not to hear bells ringing like in a lot of places in the Middle East. So I want them a little bit to be thankful. Then I challenge them a little bit more to be active in policymaker, to be active in voting for presidents, voting for candidates in the political arena who and somehow believe in conservative point of views, Judeo-biblical Christian perspectives of life, support, pro-life against abortion.
Sure.
These things matter a lot, and learn about Christians in the Middle East.
Father Andre Mahana, thank you so much for joining us, and we
Thank
hope
you.
to have you back again soon.
God bless you.
And you. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. I'll see you again tomorrow. Good night, and God bless.